Good evening. Our top story tonight, Underdog Fantasy. We're hitting that period post-draft where best ball manias open up, puppies opening up. We got the hound dog, the big dog, the whatever dog. They got a million tournaments. The Chihuahua's up. I mean, everything Underdog Fantasy is kicking off now that we are post NFL draft, post rookie draft season, or nearing the end of rookie draft season for most dynasty leagues. And now the focus is beginning to shift on in-season, seasonal fantasy tournaments and seasonal fantasy leagues. And as you know, Underdog is a valued partner here at Player Profiler. We have streams with Underdog drafts all the time, and it's the most popular best ball fantasy app in the world. So now that it's this lull in between the season, drafts are starting to kick up. There's going to be a lot of ADP changes. There's going to be a lot of risers, a lot of fallers. And if you played last year, you know that the Puka Nakuas, the Kyron Williams, these diamonds in the rough, these late round bets are the bets that you have to make if you are going to take everything home in Best Ball Mania 5. So we're going to talk a little bit about players that I think could potentially fit that mold. We're going to talk about players to target now in your drafts because they're going to get expensive. We're going to talk about players to fade in your drafts because they're going to get cheaper as the offseason continues. So we're going to go over some ADP risers, fallers, fades, targets, and then we're going to hop into a Best Ball Mania draft and do that live. So that all starts right now on Player Profiler Today. Welcome into Player Profiler Today, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Matt Babich, your Saturday host. So on the screen here, I have just a quick Google Doc that I threw together to go over some of my favorite targets and fades at ADP, and then we'll hop into a draft and talk about these players and more. So ADP's on the rise. Right now, Jonathan Brooks is RB29 on Underdog Fantasy. As he continues his recovery from his ACL injury, he is going to become more expensive. As we see him hit the field, his price is going to go up and up and up. So RB29 is his floor unless we see some big news on a prolonged recovery, which, given the history of running backs, particularly young players in general, coming back from these injuries, I don't think we will make that bet. So RB29 is essentially his floor. And the further we get along into his recovery, see him on the field, see him working out, he's going to continue to rise up those ranks. And Xavier Worthy is currently wide receiver 32 on Underdog. And as we know, and you could see here in the next section, Rashee Rice as well, these are passing ships. So already we have Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy kind of past Rashee Rice. We have that fear, but the ADP is going to fall. That's the opinion of most best ball players, most best ball experts right now, is that his ADP is going to continue to fall as his legal situation unfolds. And thusly, Xavier Worthy is going to be that ADP hype man. As we see this rookie with unknown, untapped potential, first round draft pick that they traded up for, as we see him on the field, he's going to continue to build up steam because he's playing with Patrick Mahomes. He has that big playability, the breakaway speed. He has all those traits, those flashy traits that are going to look really good in shorts come minicamp time. So Xavier Worthy's ADP is going to continue to rise. And Deontay Johnson, who right now is in the 40s of wide receivers in best ball. And I think as the preseason starts and we see what type of role he's actually going to have in this offense, which many like myself believe is going to be a pretty significant share of the targets here in an offense that, you know, is ran by a very forward-thinking, smart offensive coordinator that really turned the Tampa Bay offense back around with Baker Mayfield. Now with Bryce Young, an upgraded offensive line, a slot master that's been allergic to anything under a 20% target share throughout his career. is now stepping into this offense and is in the wide receiver 40s. That opportunity is not matching up with that value. And I think we see that start to correct as drafts continue. ADP is ready to fall. We have Josh Jacobs, RB10 right now with all the talk coming in on Marshawn Lloyd. There's a lot of touch competition there. As we see Marshawn Lloyd hit the field, his ADP is going to rise. Jacobs is going to fall a little bit. So I'm not willing to buy Josh Jacobs at RB10 right now. I'm a little concerned about that opportunity share. I don't think it's as guaranteed as it has been in years past. And then Drake May, after not getting the biggest vote of confidence from Gerard Mayo in terms of his immediate talent, Gerard Mayo went on the record saying that he has a lot of work to do, which and we think we all know is true. He's a rookie in the NFL, but I think that comment is going to start to lead to more signals that Jacoby Brissett is going to start this season. But I do think that, October, November at the very latest, that Drake May is starting on this team. You simply don't bench these guys for very long unless you're winning football games. And I don't think the Patriots are going to be winning many football games. So it's only a matter of time before Drake May gets the starting nod. I'm willing to buy in at quarterback 25. I think we start to get him closer to quarterback 30 by the time the season's actually here. And then late round heroes, these guys that could end up surprising everybody. I know it's not these aren't necessarily the prettiest names, but Kyron Williams wasn't a pretty name this offseason. Puka Nacua was for some as a rookie, but he was, going at the end of drafts. So it wasn't a pretty pick to most at the time. But Audric Estime, the Sean Payton backfield has historically been a fantasy-friendly one, and we saw him try to get things going with Jaleel McLaughlin, with Samaje Perine, and Javonte Williams, and couldn't really get things going, couldn't really get it figured out, rotating these backs, giving different opportunity to kind of all of them. And we can take this one of two ways. We can say that Sean Payton all of a sudden doesn't want to do the Sean Payton backfield anymore, where it's mostly two running backs splitting a majority of the work, both having fantasy-friendly roles in the offense. Either he's decided he doesn't want to do that anymore, or he didn't have the personnel in his mind to make him confident enough to put that out on the field. And now he kind of gets his quarterback that he thinks can run his system. He got him his wide receiver from college, and he drafted Audric Estime, who does kind of profile like that Mark Ingram-esque back to slot in this backfield. So I really do believe at the end of the year, we could look back and we could see that Audric Estime through the first half of the year had a near 50%, maybe even more opportunity share. And as the season goes along, he starts to get maybe even close to the 60s in terms of his opportunity share. And that at ADP would turn out to be one of the biggest hits of the draft if that's the way that plays out. Now, is the offense going to be good enough to sustain that? That's the biggest question. Is a Bo Nix-led, Sean Payton-led offense going to be good enough for a 60% opportunity share for Audric Estime to matter at ADP? So I don't think he's a candidate to finish at like RB6 or whatever it was that Kyron Williams did, but being drafted, as RB47 and finishing inside the top 24, inside the top 20, or inside the top 30 even, would be a big steal at ADP. I do think Estime is one of the late round picks that has one of the more realistic pathways to being a top 24 running back. He does have some muddled running back competition, but it's not significant. It's not going to take a lot to beat out an old Samaje Perine. It's not going to take a lot to beat out a UDFA. I think, don't quote me on that, and Jaleel McLaughlin. So he's going to be the RB2 sooner rather than later. And I'm buying in at ADP in that case. And Jacoby Myers, similar reasons, but more proven production. Our wide receiver 57, an underdog ADP, had a 21% target share last year, finished wide receiver 24 in fantasy points per game, now gets a better quarterback, and sign me all the way up for this connection. And we're taking a more rounded Josh Downs and taking a profile that was getting a 17% target share in Indianapolis And we're replacing prime Michael Pittman with still really good but aging Devontae Adams, and rookie Josh Downs with experienced slot master Jacoby Myers. So I think we see that those target shares that we saw with Pittman and Josh Downs kind of even out in Las Vegas. And we get some increased passing volume as well with a quarterback that can actually throw. And then J.K. Dobbins, this is kind of a health bet. Like, what if J.K. Dobbins is healthy and stays healthy all year? I mean, I'm willing to take shares of J.K. Dobbins at ADP because if he hits, he has the best opportunity to be Kyren Williams. There's nobody in this field, in my mind, that has the more realistic chance outside of health to be the Kyren Williams. And that's the big bet. Can J.K. Dobbins sustain an entire year on an NFL team? I don't know, but I'm willing to be at average exposure on J.K. Dobbins. And then early round ADP targets, I'll talk more about these in the draft. Jalen Waddle, Travis Etienne, Kyle Pitts, Alvin Kamara are my values. So let's hear a little bit from our sponsor at Underdog before we hop into our draft.
This episode is made possible by Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog Fantasy is the leader in best ball. When you go to join an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft, it fills very quickly, especially now. It's Best Ball Mania season, baby. Best Ball Mania 5. I can't believe they're at Best Ball Mania 5 already. $15 million in prizes. They're giving out $15 million with $1.5 million to first. Playing in best ball leagues makes you better. It helps train you on player value and strategy. And Underdog offers a lot more than just best ball contests. They offer pick'ems. My new favorite, the golf pick'ems. But they have the NBA pick'ems, baseball pick'ems going on throughout the offseason. Hit the pick'ems, back to best ball, hit the pick'ems. So use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. So they've increased the maximum deposit bonus. It was $100. Now it's up to $125. When you get the Underdog app, use promo code Underworld. Go draft your ass off.
Go draft your ass off with Underdog Fantasy. We are back on Player Profiler today. So let's zoom in here a little bit on the screen. Still waiting for 9 people here in the morning in a Best Ball Mania lobby. It's generally, these things usually fill up very quickly. Let's see if we can hop into another draft real quick. I got put into the same lobby. So got 8 people. I'm realizing we probably could have done the first segment as this was loading. I was expecting this to fill quicker, but might as well just talk about some of our ADP bets while we are waiting here for the draft to start. So Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 19. It's a down year for Waddle. The lowest number of touchdowns in his career, lowest, by 1 receiving yards, lowest in receptions. He took an efficiency hit as well last year. And so now all the way down at wide receiver 19, below, the most crazy and hard to understand target situations in Houston at 15 and 17 for Collins and Diggs. This is a receiver in Waddle that was wide receiver 10 in terms of best ball points added per game in 2022. And that was lowered in 2023, but I'm expecting a return to the mean here for the playmaker in Jalen Waddle as Tyreek Hill, who is incredible. Like I'm not fading Tyreek Hill. He's one of the Derrick Henry type players where you can't predict the cliff. You don't know when it's going to come, and you don't want to get bit in the ass by saying 30-year-old Tyreek Hill can't do it anymore, or 30-year-old, Mike Evans last year can't do it anymore. That bit a lot of people in the ass. So Tyreek Hill is great. I don't love him at wide receiver 2, but I love Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 19. Kyle Pitts was the second man on the list. Tight end 6, and I think we're just too afraid of what Kyle Pitts has done to us already. And I'm here to tell you that Kyle Pitts is in line for a tight end 1 season. And this is going to be a league winning pick. The people who have Kyle Pitts at 30% exposure are going to be incredibly happy at the end of the year, because let me tell you, this is the Falcons' slot wide receiver. This is the Falcons' wide receiver 2. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 2 receiver sets where Kyle Pitts is lined up out wide. He's going to line up all over the field. He's going to be a top 5 tight end in terms of slot snaps. So we have a big slot, and this is mirrored by the target competition they brought in. Darnell Mooney and Rondale Moore are very good talents. They're very good role players. They're not stars. This passing offense, is running through Kyle Pitts and Drake London. And this is a Kirk Cousins passing offense that has sustained incredible seasons for TJ Hawkinson. And in fact, if Kirk Cousins was still in Minnesota and TJ Hawkinson hadn't gotten injured, he would be tight end 4, competing with Dalton Kincaid. And so I think off the bat, we're getting about a 2 positional value in Kyle Pitts, where he should probably be tight end 4, but the fear about his past production is weighing him down. And I'm willing to hit the button on Kyle Pitts every single time he comes close to me at ADP, simply because of what's going to happen when that bet hits. So even if he pays off at tight end 6 at ADP, like, he's probably a good bet. And so I think he has one of the safer floors, where you look at George Kittle has, he's 31 years old. He has a stiff target competition in Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. They just drafted a first-round wide receiver. Evan Ingram, team just drafted a first-round wide receiver, brought in Gabe Davis, has Christian Kirk still. Jake Ferguson, I like at tight end 9, actually. Like, he gets those red zone targets. Team still hasn't brought in any significant target competition. But the floor is relatively safe for Kyle Pitts. It's more of the opportunity cost of the positions you're passing up. And this year, when we look at, Kyle Pitts is 60 at ADP, and then we look at who's going in the 60s. So you're passing up on guys like Jaden Reed, Marquise Brown, like Kenneth Walker and Alvin Kamara are the 2 at ADP that I would really struggle with taking Kyle Pitts over. I think the positional value there at 16 and 17 in the 60s is good. But receiver wise, if you're good on receivers in the 60s, if you've gotten your receivers early, look for a Kyle Pitts in this range. I would certainly rather take him than George Kittle at 66. And I think he sticks out like a sore thumb in this tier. Just so much upside. He's drenched in upside. We got 2 more people here ready to go, or waiting before we go. I wish I would have hopped in this draft earlier. I have so much. I'm overflowing with regret, because this is going to be a longer episode than I was anticipating. I would really like for people to hop in this best ball mania draft right now. Side note, this is the longest I have ever seen a best ball mania draft fill up. I have never waited longer than 5 minutes for a best ball mania draft to fill up. I guess Saturday at noon is not a good time for best ball, but I mentioned Travis Etienne in the Jaguars backfield. He's another running back that I'm all in on at ADP. So we got 38 ADP. This is the biggest reason why, too, is because I love Derrick Henry. I mentioned him being one of the guys that we can't predict the cliff for, but I think we started to see the cliff last year. And at RB9, even in Baltimore, it's just a tough bet for me to make consistently. Whereas we saw Travis Etienne already put up that production, that youthful production in Jacksonville. The team brought in more uncertainty in the receiving game by removing Calvin Ridley and adding in Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis. But this was the RB7 in fantasy points per game last year. In terms of best ball points added, he was the RB4 with nearly 10 best ball points added per game. So this is one of the most effective running backs in best ball last year, and he's effectively in the exact same situation he was last year. And I think this is just an incredible spot to be hitting on Travis Etienne in, because you look like we have such inflated wide receiver ADPs that you're likely coming away with your top couple of guys at the top of the draft. And then there's such a big teardrop when you get to the Zay Flowers, T. Higgins, Tank Dell tier, of receivers. Again, as we look here, and Travis Etienne's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. Like Travis Kelce is tight end 2. I really want to like Kelce at ADP. It's just a little tough with his struggles last season. We saw him lose a little bit of a step, and we have guys like Kincaid, Pitts that are later in ADP that I think have just as much upside as Kelce. So ETN kind of sticks out like a sore thumb here. Goodness gracious, we cannot get this draft to fill. Like I'm thinking about creating a new account so I can double draft in this draft and just get it over with. I should have probably tweeted out the link or something. But last early round ADP target, it's not even really an early round ADP target necessarily, but I mentioned Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker Jr. or Kenneth Walker III here. Alvin Kamara, just an absolute stud. Still, like, we saw with no offensive line, no pass game to keep defenses honest. Alvin Kamara struggled on the ground. I get it, but he didn't really have much of a chance to succeed on the ground. This team couldn't get anything moving. Derek Carr was a statue. And the only thing that they could do, because defenses were just playing so aggressively on them and making them run the ball, making them throw deep, things that they just couldn't do. And Alvin Kamara was just the check down guy. I mean, 75 receptions last year. I don't care what his efficiency was. He had nearly 19 weighted opportunities per game, which is first by a good margin among all running backs. He was like the RB3 last year in terms of fantasy points per game. And he's here at RB17 again with ADPs in the 60s. I just don't get it. I don't understand why we're still so low on Alvin Kamara. I just don't think that we've learned our lesson. And here we're finally kind of in the draft here. We got the 6th draft spot. So we'll talk a little bit of strategy. And quite honestly, we're already at 22 minutes, and I have to get ready for a concert at some point here. So there is a shot we call off we stop streaming the draft a little early. We're gonna take it. We're gonna take it one pick at a time. We're certainly gonna talk strategy as we go. Potentially as we get into the later round picks, I might dip a little early, just to let you guys know. But we have the 6th pick here. It's an interesting spot. I've been more gravitated towards the early picks, the 1, 3, 1, 4, and then the back of the draft, the 1, 10, 1, 12. So I haven't really picked exactly 6 here yet. So this is a spot where I like to maybe get a little unique. So many would opt to just take their first receiver here. Probably would look at a guy like Puka Nacua. I'll take Amon-Ra St. Brown if he's there. I think Bijan Robinson is my guy. Dalvin Cook under Kirk Cousins was, like a top 3 back in terms of weighted opportunities per game in his prime. And those are RB1 numbers. The thing about Bijan Robinson that's really interesting is that his role last year wasn't even really that bad, despite us hating it. He had a little over 15 weighted opportunities per game. So he was involved at a decent level. I mean, he was RB7 or 8, something like that. He was a top 10 RB in terms of weighted opportunities per game. And so here we're left with the choice of Justin Jefferson, which I'm not going to be taking, Amon-Ra St. Brown, or Bijan Robinson. And just what if Bijan Robinson is that game-breaking asset? I mean, I know he's RB2, but he could be that guy to just kind of break fantasy, be the RB1 overall. And Amon-Ra St. Brown just couldn't necessarily break the mold, despite being, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a little crazy, and I'm going to take Bijan Robinson at 6. This is a tough decision. I would like Amon-Ra St. Brown, but what I kind of like about this play is that I might get an extra receiver pushed back to me at 19 and maybe be able to come away with a value there. But that being said, I think the opportunity cost of making that Bijan Robinson pick is that when I come back on the board, we're going to be looking at Olave, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Nico Collins, Mike Evans, which I don't love as my wide receiver one. I would prefer to have a guy like Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill. I'm afraid of, I'll be honest, I'm afraid of regression for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know he's a beast. I know they didn't bring in much target competition. But I was really thinking last year was going to be that year where he took the leap, and maybe I'm being too afraid. But I think Bijan Robinson can truly break fantasy football this season with Kirk Cousins. We're going to see just an overall better offense, and Bijan's going to get a 12% target share plus. I mean, he might have hit that mark last year. Let's hit to Player Profiler and take a look. And he put up a 17.2% target share, number 3. So I love Mooney and love Rondale Moore, but were they really brought in to have that significant of a slice of a pie here? I think that's something like that is pretty realistic for Bijan Robinson this year. We go to Dalvin Cook and see what he did in the prime Kirk Cousins years. So let's just start in 2019 to pick kind of a lane here. So he had a 16% target share in 2019. That was 10th. 13.4 in 2020. That was 9th. 11.7, which was 13th in 2021. And then he kind of hit the dust in 2022. So this is a guy who was a year-over-year RB10 in terms of target share with Kirk Cousins. And that can be the type of role that Bijan plays. There's a reason he's still being drafted at RB2. It's just kind of it's kind of a gut feeling with me that I think Bijan Robinson is going to be one of the better picks in the early rounds because of the type of role he's going to have in this offense. And Mike Evans goes right before us. I think I was waiting for Mike Evans. That was kind of the receiver I wanted there. I'd have to draft Waddle over Olave here. I just can't get behind Waddle or Olave at ADP. Trying to load a player page here. It's not going to load in time. So I'm going to take Devontae Adams with a career resurgence underneath Gardner Minshew. Last year, Olave 19th in fantasy points per game. He was 25th the year before. And then in best ball points added, he was wide receiver 19 with only 6.8 per game, which would shake out to somewhere around 15, 16. Now, Devontae Adams is only 1 year removed from an incredible season in Las Vegas. He was, let's see, in 2022, he was wide receiver 5, coming off of wide receiver 2, 1, 6, 1, 8, 12, going all the way back to his career as a starter. So he hits the cliff here only because of the bad quarterback play. I mean, he had 175 targets, over 100 receptions, but only 1,100 receiving yards, only 8 touchdowns. He had a 39% red zone target share with a 33% target share. Getting him under a guy that just gave Michael Pittman an insane season is a big value to me. I kind of really like this start, getting my locked in hero RB. I don't have to worry about that position for probably a few more picks. It's too early to be taking the Travis Etiennes here, but maybe Diggs, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman could fall to us here in the next 4 picks. And we really have a strong start to this draft. I don't know what I'm going to do if Laporta is the best player on the board. I think it's pretty clear here that I'm going for a Atlanta stack, Bijan, Kyle Pitts, and Kirk Cousins. So I'm really hoping that is what works out for us here. But we're 2 picks away. Diggs is off the board. We're hoping that one of DJ Moore or Michael Pittman Jr. falls in our laps. And we got that with Cooper Kupp going. I actually like Cooper Kupp going here. I don't think he's outside of the top 20 next year. And so we're going to very quickly hit the button on Michael Pittman Jr. Josh Allen at ADP. Let's talk about Josh Allen at ADP. QB1 is a tough price to pay, but I think there's a different opportunity cost to drafting Josh Allen that lets you get a little unique in tournaments. Granted, Josh Allen is, QB1. He's a very popular draft pick. But you have an opportunity to stack here with Josh Allen, Kincaid, Keon Coleman, and Curtis Samuel. You can do kind of a super bill stack. Excuse me. And if Josh Allen pays off at QB1, then you're profiting more than you were last year if that surrounding talent leaks into the fantasy points. So Josh Allen was incredible last year, but Diggs wasn't really scoring fantasy points. Gabe Davis wasn't reliably scoring fantasy points. It was really tough to stack him and take true advantage of Josh Allen being the top fantasy option from the quarterback position last year. So where's it going to go? Is Keon Coleman going to be a value? Is Curtis Samuel going to be a value? I like the pieces that they put together in Buffalo. I really like the Curtis Samuel signing. He's someone who I think has really insulated volume week over week as that slot receiver. Kincaid obviously is going to have a healthy target share. So I think you're going to get, an improved sophomore season for Dalton Kincaid. And now we're talking about an offense that isn't just going to be Josh Allen potentially. And this year, whereas last year you were trying to draft Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, you were likely doing it unsuccessfully. But now you compare Josh Allen with wide receiver 40 ADP Keon Coleman, later round ADP receiver in Curtis Samuel. Khalil Shakir is at wide receiver 50, and Dalton Kincaid at tight end 4, given the target competition, is a reasonable bet. So I don't hate Josh Allen at ADP. I'm not someone who generally goes early quarterback. Hold the fucking phone. What is going on here? I'm sitting here talking about Josh Allen. I see Mahomes and Hurts go. I'm sure that he is gone. And then I scroll up and Josh Allen is still here. So Josh Allen is clearly sliding here in ADP as Zay Flowers goes. Josh Jacobs falling here in ADP. Damn, Josh Allen goes off the board. What an incredible pull that would have been if we could have gotten Josh Allen at 43. Even just getting him at 40, this guy's got to be stoked. I mean, he can get. This is an incredible draft because he's already got the stack going with Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta. I've just gifted this guy an incredible stack. And then Brandon Ayuk, and he can just come in with Josh Allen, some of those late round targets. Doesn't even have to worry about Kincaid, and then can still get his stack options with Goff in the mid rounds. That's just an incredible start to the draft. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take another bet here. Ooh. I was going to go Pacheco, but I'm going to go Trey McBride. Oh, no, I'm going to go for Pitts. Never mind. I almost threw that whole strategy in the toilet. So we're going to go with Isaiah Pacheco to get our second running back. I really like some of these RB ADPs. This just not going to work out to get the Kamara, Kenneth Walker, just with where we're picking and what we want to do. They can be a backup option if this next pick 9 picks away doesn't go the way we want it to. But I really like Pacheco at value. He's one of my kind of hardline RBs here in this area where, Tank Dell and George Pickens were tough to pass up on for sure. But I think there's a lot of value in similar places as we continue this draft. So it's kind of a bet, but I do feel like you're going to have to be a little bit strong at RB this season, given ADPs. We take a look at the running back position, and really once we get to RB 25, I just kind of hate what we see. James Conner, Jonathan Brooks are both fine. I mentioned earlier in the show he was RB 29. That was a mistake. He's RB 26, so apologies there. But we get guys like Raheem Mostert, Trey Benson, Javonte Williams, Zach Moss. It's a really tough area of running back. So I want to have at least 2 by the time we get to RB 30, and then we can start, give me Marshawn Lloyd or Jalen Wright, maybe not Ray Davis, J.K. Dobbins, like just load some of those guys up and have my 2 guys that I can just rely on being there every week for me. And then give me the spike weeks from other backs. Like if you're taking Bijan Robinson early, you don't want to swing with the fences on every pick just because there's a lot going around in Atlanta. That's why we're going to build this Atlanta stack here. I like Pacheco because he's probably good for 10 points every week. He doesn't necessarily have that upside, but in a position like running back where there's a lot of scattered floors, some ugly ADPs, you don't want zeros. And Pacheco is going to be that guy I can rely to get 10 to 12 points in my RB spot every single week and just let those spike weeks happen underneath them. So here we are. We're on the clock. We can hit the button on Kyle Pitts. For what it's worth, I like Rachaad White, Joe Mixon here at ADP. I love Christian Kirk. I'm okay with Amari Cooper. I'm not in love with him, but I like him. All right, 11 picks away. We're going to go back to receiver. We're going to try and get somebody in this tier here. And then we're just going to kind of keep trying to round out our roster. We obviously could have paired Richardson with Michael Pittman Jr. I don't really think that makes a lot of sense. I think we're building towards a late quarterback draft. So here's the rounds. Round 5 is where you really want to start thinking about where you're building towards and what you want to start doing. So 3 quarterbacks is most likely what I'm going to give to this team. If Kyler Murray is there when we come back around, I could get behind potentially doing that. Pairing. Oh, I'm sorry. Scratch that. I still had it in my mind that we were taking Trey McBride, but we're not. So I don't necessarily see the value in taking Kyler Murray there without really being able to stack him with somebody of significance. So we obviously want our share of Kirk Cousins here at QB 18. Kind of plan out where we're going to go outside of that. We could go potentially naked Jaden Daniels. Jahan Dotson is, I think, off the board. McLaurin just went off the board. Dotson is wide receiver 61. So we got a little while before he's available. So we could potentially pull off a Dotson, Jaden Daniels stack, and we can get Ben Sinnott at tight end as well. So that might be who we go for. But clearly we're kind of building towards 3 quarterbacks, especially with the health of Kirk Cousins. Not necessarily certain. He might miss a game or two with some injury that pops up, like a calf strain. I'm kind of hoping Kenneth Walker goes here because then I'm put in the position where I wish I wouldn't have taken Pacheco and I wish I would have gambled. And now I have to play the game of, do I take Kenneth Walker or do I take Jordan Addison? And then Brian Thomas Jr. goes. And now I have to wonder if I take Kenneth Walker or if I go receiver again and take Pittman. So we're what, 5 picks away after this? 7-ish picks away. We're going to take Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison, one of the highest performing rookies last season. I'm not interested with this team with taking the bet on Alad McConkey being consistent or even having significant spike weeks. I'm not going to take a bet on a Los Angeles Charger this year to have a bunch of spike weeks. And I think this bet's not going to pay off for me. I'm going to go back to Jordan Addison, but I was going to take Kenneth Walker, and then I decided that I think I like the potential running backs I can get in this next pick more so than the potential receivers that I can get. And I think I should have just been okay with taking Deontay Johnson as my firewall and taking Kenneth Walker Jr. But instead, I panicked a little bit. I thought I might be able to get a better running back on the turn and went with Jordan Addison. I think you can make either pick work. I think this is what's so fun about Underdog is literally 2 picks after your pick. You can just say, okay, my entire strategy is lost. This was worthless. I don't know what I'm doing here. That's what I love about Underdog. You can just get screwed over in so many different ways. It makes it so fun. You have to adjust on the fly. So we're going to adjust. We're going to hope we like what we see here on the back end. Considering David Montgomery here in conjunction with Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, who just fell off the board. Planning out, like I said, I don't like where this RB tier goes. I will get a shot at somebody here as my RB3, which is really making me ponder whether or not and David Montgomery's gone. I'm not really in. It's hard to be in on Ramondre Stevenson right now after last season. I'm going to take one of my favorite targets at ADP and Deontay Johnson, and we're going to let running back ride here when we come back around. And I think Carolina is another good option for us to go quarterback with later. So now that I'm done with this move, I actually really like it because what we can do is we can get Kirk Cousins, and then we have our option here with our receivers of getting JJ McCarthy, Sam Darnold if we really want to be crazy, Bryce Young, Gardner Minshew, and we can really take a pick of 3 kind of late round quarterbacks that we all have stacks with. Everyone kind of wins there. So 8 picks left. I think this team is turning out to be pretty solid right now with Bijan and Pacheco captaining the running backs, Devontae Adams, Michael Pittman Jr., Jordan Addison, and Deontay Johnson. Some big play receivers there, 2 in the early rounds with some significant target shares that they're going to have. We have our tight end 1 in Kyle Pitts. We don't have to worry about him later. Or we don't have to worry about him or we don't have to worry about the tight end position until later. 6 picks coming up on 42 minutes. So probably going to close this draft and cut the stream off at an hour here. We'll see how the rest of these rounds go. We'll see where we're at in 17 minutes, but we'll share the team. If we do cut out early, we'll share the team online. Just Saturdays are a tough day to work schedules around and still get things done. But we're here. We're going to be here every Saturday. We may go a little long some days. We'll go a little short some days. We might tease you with 3/4 of an underdog draft and then cut off the stream. But we are always going to be here at Player Profiler. So 3 picks away. Oh, please, baby. Please. Do the thing, you 2 teams. Do not screw me. Come on. One more pick until we get our guy, Jonathan Brooks. Oh, yeah. We're setting up this Carolina stack. We're going to, this is all coming together. So Jonathan Brooks, again, one of my favorite targets at ADP. Like I mentioned, I would have been okay with Jalen Warren there if that's the way we had to go. It would have made me really upset that I didn't take George Pickens earlier, and then instead of Pacheco and then taking Kenneth Walker as my RB2 with Jalen Warren as my RB3, kind of get that Pittsburgh stack rolling, another late round stack that could potentially offer some value and some uniqueness in drafts. But I think things are working out pretty well right now. I think Carolina is going to be a sneaky decent offense next season, especially in a division where they get to play the Saints twice. They get to play the Buccaneers twice that are, okay. They get to play the Falcons twice, which better defense, but also better offense. They're going to have to compete. They're going to have to throw a lot. They may even be playing in garbage time and get to rack up some points that way. So I do like kind of targeting the NFC South this year at value. There's a lot of ADP values that I'm quite okay with, but let's, kind of thinking forward to our next pick here. We're not in the spot to take a quarterback yet. We've kind of sold on taking Kirk Cousins here, which we're just going to have to kind of take him early. So I might take him 15 picks above ADP because we can talk about that a little bit more as we progress through the draft. But if you're going to hit it big, right? If this Atlanta stack is going to hit it big and you're going to win Best Ball Mania 5, you're probably not going to lose it because you took him 15 picks ahead of ADP instead of 7 picks ahead of ADP. It's unless it's truly just not worth it. Either it's too big of a value jump or there's too big of an opportunity cost in between picks. At the end of the day, if the Atlanta bet hits, it's going to hit probably because of Kirk Cousins. And if you miss out on that, your whole draft is for naught. So there is a trade-off in stacking. You don't want to give into it too much, but at the same time, you got to respect the fact that you're making a bet here. And if it's going to pay off, it's going to pay off big. It's not going to pay off by 7 picks. And you just got to take those. You got to take those shots. If you're taking Ayuk and McCaffrey or whatever, getting a 49ers stack, like you can be taking Brock Purdy at 88. You could be taking him 10 to 12 picks ahead of ADP, but we're up on the clock. I hate Jameson Williams at ADP. I'm not going to draft him there. This is the grossest, just everything about this is awful. And because of that, I'm just going to sit and take best player available and take David Njoku. And I'm probably done with tight end. I'm probably just done with tight end there. You don't want to succumb to going too far down ADP there and just taking a guy that you don't like. This is by far the grossest rounds of drafts. Just nothingness. Like if you want to be taking quarterbacks here, because Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels, they're in good tiers where you don't like the running backs, you don't like the receivers. So you would optimally be taking your quarterbacks there. But the way it played out, I think just sitting and taking Njoku, a top option on his offense, was the best way to do things. We're 7 picks away from the 10th round pick. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say we're here. What do we do? My thought goes towards just taking Jacoby Myers. Like I said, I don't care if there's a 7 pick difference, in ADP. I think Jacoby Myers is far and away just better than these guys. Oh, we got Devontae Adams too. So that's probably our best bet, is just to sit and take Jacoby Myers here. I potentially like Brian Robinson Jr. and Devin Singletary just because of their roles. But with 3 running backs already on the board, I don't really care about floor. I care about ceiling, and I think there's bigger ceiling plays later on, like Corum, Rico Dowdle, Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, that I would rather just take the bet on at that point in my draft. So just a ton of running backs and quarterbacks right now, which is only going to make things easier for us. I did say earlier that I was going to actually take Kirk Cousins here. I'm going to risk it, and I'm not going to do that because of how many quarterbacks are on the board. So I'm hitting Jacoby Myers 3, 4. We're going to make the bet, right? This could completely bite us in the ass. We have 2, 3, 4 drafters in between where I just drafted and where I'm drafting next that have 0 quarterbacks, not 4 different teams, but 4 picks of people without a quarterback. So this could be the dumbest thing I've ever done, or only 3. But could be the dumbest thing I've ever done. Could be the smartest thing I've ever done. I think we're just going to have to find out and start clicking on some of these teams and see who people have. We already lost it, but I kind of like this start. Hill, Samuel, Kupp, Pickens, Watson, Shaheed. I'm probably betting too much on receivers there, but getting closer here. Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels still on the board. So this is kind of what we like to see it's kind of interesting how quarterbacks have been treated in this draft. We're now near 20 picks. We are 20 picks post ADP for Brock Purdy. He is not there. We're approaching 20 picks past ADP for Jaden Daniels. He is still there. And these fuckers are going to force me to, pardon my French, these people are going to force me to take Kirk Cousins over all of these people. So Purdy goes 21 picks after ADP. This has been a very interesting draft for quarterbacks. I'm kind of glad that it has been because it's really allowed me to execute the strategy that I've been going for. We have 5 receivers. We're going to close it out with some late round Atlanta bets. I just really love the way this has been coming together. So we get to take Kirk Cousins here. So we have our Atlanta stack. We got Kirk, Robinson, Kyle Pitts. I guess we're setting up to take Minshew, but we don't necessarily have to. We can still take McCarthy if we want. That's an interesting, it's kind of a talent versus situation thing. Like, do we think that McCarthy is so much more talented than Minshew that the supporting cast is going to, propel him to some pretty big games? I just don't know if he's going to have that passing volume. We've seen Gardner Minshew put up a higher volume passing offense. We haven't seen it from JJ McCarthy yet. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, it is a non-zero chance that Sam Darnold starts week 1 and they win games under him, and McCarthy doesn't play for very long. To me, there is so much uncertainty in JJ McCarthy that I think I would rather just hit the button on, when is Minshew going in drafts? Because McCarthy is QB 24. We'd have to invest in him rather soon, whereas we can wait for QB 28 with Bryce Young and quarterback 33 with Minshew, and he can be near our last pick. And so I think that's the route we're going to go, right? We're going to target Bryce Young, and we're also going to target Minshew here towards the very end. We're at 52 minutes here in this draft. So we'll see what happens in about 8 minutes. We're probably going to be far enough to where we can wrap it up. There's 18 rounds. We'll probably be through round 14, and we'll just have some of these late round targets to kind of clean up. Like I said, unfortunately, just time commitments today, and it's already 12:30. So I'm kind of running behind, but it's okay. Life stops for fantasy football this time of year. Nothing else is truly as important as this. 3 picks away. Do we just make the Xavier Legette bet? That's tough. That is tough. He's a first-round pick. I would like to believe that Dave Canales had a role in picking him. We do only have 3 quarterbacks, so 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I'm rudimentarily counting on my hands, but we need 2 more quarterbacks. That's 5 more picks, and we're going to need at least 2 more receivers. So running backs wise, we're going to be sitting at 5 or 6. I think that makes sense for our build. So do we need a running back now? I don't know if Wright and Lloyd are going to make it back to us, and that's what really worries me. Because we are with Jonathan Brooks, we're taking on the possibility of PUP. And that's the struggle. And so I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Rico Dowdle. I'm going to take Rico Dowdle for the running back. This is where drafts are made. This is where drafts are made right now. I don't know if I necessarily made the right decision there in taking Rico Dowdle. But this is going to be a high volume Cowboys offense that, how long are we going to be afraid of Ezekiel Elliott? How long are we going to live in that man's shadow? We saw Rico Dowdle we saw Tony Pollard be very effective with Ezekiel Elliott on the field, and Rico Dowdle was pretty good when called upon. He had 3 games over 13 fantasy points per game, 4 over 13 fantasy points, 4 games over 12. And he's really stepped up here in his last couple of years in the league. He's got great athleticism metrics. So I'm willing to take a shot there on Rico Dowdle with an aging Ezekiel Elliott. So what's going to happen here? Because I went Dowdle. If I didn't go Dowdle, Jalen Wright and Marshawn Lloyd would have been gone, and I wouldn't have been able to take either of them. And okay, never mind. See, they were gone anyway. I was thinking the underdog curse would hit, and I would have to watch as Jalen Wright and Marshawn Lloyd fell back to me. And so that's where, like, I don't like Ty Chandler necessarily. Like I said, like with Jonathan Brooks hitting the pup, I want somebody who can be putting points in my lineup earlier on. And so I think Dowdle's that guy who can take that leap and at least be scoring points for me. I don't want to take on too much risk in that running back room. If I wait on guys later on, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to call it an L. Should have taken Xavier Legette and then came back and taken J.K. Dobbins later on. I screwed up there. That's on me. And now I'm sitting here just with a gross decision to make. I don't want to make any of these bets. So, oh my God. I'm drafting Adam Thielen, 16 picks ahead of ADP. That's what we're doing here. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're just going to follow this Carolina stack into hell, and we're going to suffer. I feel like this is always where I kind of throw some of my drafts away. I'm betting big on Carolina, but we have this interdivisional stack too, with Atlanta and Carolina being our main stacks. So this is a big ballsy bet to make, but if Thielen is not totally washed, if Carolina does take the Canales step forward, I think this is still a solid lineup. I think we have a big question mark here in Dowdle, but somebody that could pay off huge if he does take that next step in the NFL. So I'm hitting that period in the draft where I just stop kind of liking what I'm doing. I just kind of wish that I could go back and do things a little bit differently. I don't think I needed to take Adam Thielen that early. There's still a chance that some of the guys that was going to look to draft before that make it back to me. I'm staring at 3 receivers that I would be okay with hitting the button on. I do think that Thielen's a little bit mispriced because of age. I think he's just a more certain asset in terms of his floor from what we saw last year in the Bryce Young offense versus what we don't know about any of these receivers. Like, these are 3 rookie receivers stepping into situations where they could get higher opportunity, could get lower opportunity than we think. Like, Troy Franklin isn't necessarily, he should be a starter, but Josh Reynolds is in that offense. It's not necessarily locked in that he's going to be that guy for them. And so we're about to come on the clock. And so I gotta, face the music on all 3. So I like the Dowdle pick a lot more now because I wouldn't have gotten Dobbins at RB50 based on this. So I got to take a shot here on a receiver. Give me the one that's tied to Joe Burrow with running the most 3 receiver sets in the league and potentially dealing T. Higgins at some point this season. So give me Jermaine Burton to round out my receiving core. Excuse me. So we have 15, 16, 17, 18. I should be able to do this math quicker in my head. Forgive me. It's a Saturday. 4 picks. 2 of them are going to be quarterback. And then we have probably 1 running back, 1 receiver. I think we have enough to get us through the first potentially 8 weeks with Jonathan Brooks. I don't think he misses 8 weeks. I don't think he starts on the pup. I'm going to quick see if there's any reports of the pup. I don't think he's going to hit the pup. I don't see I don't see anything immediately linking him to the pup list. I think he's going to be fine there. I think he probably misses the first 4 weeks, but he isn't going to be on the pup list. So we have to decide here who we're going to take at receiver. I think I might have missed out on all the Atlanta value. We do have Rondale Moore. We're going to probably have to take him over other guys that we'd like. 198. I don't want to take Bryce Young that early, but why is Geno Smith still on the board? Like, I don't want to do this, but we're just this is where we just screw ADP. Let's just make sure we have the format that we want. Because, like, are we going to look back at the end of the season and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't take Luke McCaffrey over. Okay, maybe a bad example because Luke McCaffrey could be good, but we're going to say like Rashad Bateman, Javon Baker. Are we going to be mad that we didn't take any of these guys over Bryce Young? Or like, what happens if we hit the button on Luke McCaffrey and we come back to pick in the 16th and Bryce Young isn't there? He gets taken because, I mean, do you really value him over Drake May and Justin Fields? Like, I don't think so. I don't think people are going to do that. So, again, tough decision there. You got to make a lot of tough decisions in underdog drafts. I went to preserve our format here, and now we kind of wait to see who we take here. Is it going to be a running back? Is it going to be a receiver? Probably just going to take it one step at a time, take BPA. Tyrone Tracy is going to be one of our guys here. Keaton Mitchell is going to be one of our guys here. Wan'Dale Robinson, Demario Douglas. I'm not confident enough either way between Roshan Johnson and Khalil Herbert to really make a good opinion there. Oh, there he is. Audric Estime, one of our late round heroes. He's got a 209 ADP. Could potentially squeeze that out, but I think this is, again, just the area where if Audric Estime truly hits, is it going to be that big of a deal if you take him at 187 versus 198? Unfortunately, I don't have the answer, but I think we're just going to play the game of F around and find out. Like, we do want Rondale Moore at 212 to kind of iron out another piece of our Atlanta stack. So I'm going to take an absolute moonshot on Audric Estime, and we're going to see what happens. Like, he's again a guy who I really liked at ADP. I think he can be one of those guys that cracks 50% target or 50% opportunity share and just really surprises people. And so I'm really comfortable with that pick. And we have just the 17th and 18th round coming up. One of these picks is going to be, I'm really hoping I can pull this off now, but one of them is going to be Minshew. It's probably the last one. If I were to guess, Minshew at QB 33 all the way down there. And then, or I can just take Penix. I'm not going to do that. But it's going to be, Gardner Minshew. It's going to be Rondale Moore and Gardner Minshew. We'll see kind of what happens here, but that's going to be the show. So we'll quick review my team. Maybe I'll get one more pick in before that happens. I think we know how we're going to end this. We're going to try and end it with Rondale Moore and Gardner Minshew, but we have Kirk Cousins and Bryce Young. Going to look to add Gardner Minshew to that as well. We have Bijan, Isaiah Pacheco, Jonathan Brooks, Rico Dowdle, and Audric Estime as our running backs. A little weak there, but I think Jonathan Brooks is going to make this look a lot different when he's back in action. We have Devontae Adams, Michael Pittman Jr., Jordan Addison, Deontay Johnson, Jacoby Myers, Adam Thielen, and Jermaine Burton at the receiver position, Kyle Pitts and David Njoku at tight end. So we are 2 picks on the clock. I will indulge the audience and give us one more pick here. It's going to be really hilarious when when Gardner gets taken. I will just take, for what it's worth, I'll take Michael Penix. If that happens, I'm not going to bet on Aiden O'Connell or anything crazy. So let's take Rondale Moore. So we have our receivers. See, I don't know if we needed 8 there. Like, I think we probably could have gone running back and just taken Keaton Mitchell, but this is what happens. But anyway, that's the draft. I'm going to close it with Gardner Minshew. Thank you for joining. As always, tune in to the rest of the Player Profiler Today streams when you get the chance. We are live 7 days a week here at 6 p.m. Central Time. And for the Player Profiler crew, for Roto Underworld, for Player Profiler, I am Matt Babich. I am looking for the end screen. Have a good weekend.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.